1757, the New York colony. Alice and Cora travel with a platoon of British soldiers led by Major Duncan Hayward and their Mohawk liaison, Magua. They travel to Fort William Henry, where they will reunite with their father. When a plot of revenge is revealed against the Monroes, they are saved by a family of frontiersmen. Chingachgook, Uncas, and Hawkeye have no ties to England, France, or any war. They are free men. They are good men. They are the last of the Mohicans.
Welcome to Movie Friends. My name is Seth.
And I'm Michelle.
Today we're talking about The Last of the Mohicans from 1992. Directed by Michael Mann, written by Christopher Crowe and Michael Mann, based on the novel by James Fenimore Cooper, cinematography by Dante Spinati, composed by Trevor Jones and Randy Edelman, edited by Dave Honig and Arthur Schmidt, costume design by Elsa Zamparelli, starring Daniel Day-Lewis, Madeline Stowe, Eric Schweig, Wes Studi, and Stephen Waddington. Michelle, how are you?
What's going on, Seth?
Not much. It's a rainy day in upstate New York, where the movie takes place.
Hey, that's right, Albany.
Yeah.
Were you excited to see Albany in 1757?
Yeah. At one point, a guy is like, "We're going to Albany." And I was like, hey, I go there all the time.
That's my neighborhood.
It literally is. So in researching about this movie, I found a town near here just did a big ceremony and presentation where they returned artifacts to the Mohicans.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
So like literally in our area, you know, because we live right on the Hudson River.
Yeah.
Which is the river that they took their name from.
Right.
Before it was named Hudson River. Anyway, little local history.
Very cool.
For everybody. Anyway, is it raining by you?
Nice segue, sir. Actually, it was beautiful out today, but it just started raining. So I'll take it.
Yeah, we're still in the April showers.
Yeah, and plus it can rain now. I'm not going outside now. Rain all you want at night.
Yeah. Been going outside with the kids last few days.
Feels so good, doesn't it?
Yep. Getting some ice pops. Kicking around the old soccer ball.
Wow. I mean, I don't know why I shouldn't have acted so surprised. I just can't picture you kicking around a soccer ball.
Oh, I have legs.
No. Yeah. Yeah, sure. That's true. You do.
Yeah.
I just don't picture you, running around.
Let's clear this up. I'm not playing soccer. I'm literally kicking around a soccer ball.
Yeah. So like if the ball comes to you, you kick it back while seated.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you do the thing, okay, let's make a triangle. We pass it to each other.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. It's kid stuff.
Hey,
we got an email.
I was hoping we would.
This email's mostly about our episode on Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, but there's some just general movie friends stuff in here.
Oh.
Okay. So the email says...
Sprinkles.
Yes. Mm-hmm. They say, "Hello, movie friends. So glad I was able to be there for the live show earlier this year. You guys did a great job, and it was great to finally meet Michelle in person."
Whoa.
Remember when we did that?
When you said live show, I was like, the one in January? And then it's like, Michelle, it's the only one you did. Wow.
Growing up, we didn't have cable TV, but my grandma would tape movies for us onto VHS. Mm-hmm. One of those movies was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, which my brothers and I watched over and over again. The movie is such a wild ride. To this day, if I'm lying on the ground and look closely at the grass, I'll imagine what it would be like to be tiny and trekking through the dangerous grass jungle.
I feel this. Yes.
I haven't seen the movie in a while, but the part where Auntie dies always hits me hard. And then a crying emoji.
Yes.
A few years back, I found out that my grandpa's sister-in-law's brother worked in Hollywood as a stop-motion animator, and he did the work on Auntie. Keep up the good work. P.S. You guys really got me with the April Fool's joke. I was really bummed, but at the
Aw.
same time, I was surprised that Michelle had stuck it out for so long. Ha ha. It wasn't until later in the day that I realized it was April 1st.
Oh my gosh. Oh, wow. Thanks.
Where to start with this email?
Well,
This is
who's it
loaded.
from?
Oh, it's from Matt.
Matt?
Yes.
Yeah, Matt. We love Matt.
We do. We do love Matt. Matt did our artwork for our show.
Yeah. And took pictures at our live show.
Took pictures.
Matt's great. Thanks, Matt.
We got a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids connection here.
I know. Matt's family member worked on Auntie.
So my brother-in-law's grandpa's sister-in-law's brother worked on Auntie.
Seth. This is insane.
I'm basically a Zelensky.
I know. You have family connection to Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Wow. It's so cool. It's so cool.
We apologize for the April Fool's joke.
Yeah.
Did we apologize?
No, I don't apologize.
Okay.
It was a game. A prank?
It's a prank. It's a fun joke.
I thought we did a good job, but also I think I could do better.
Oh, all right. Well, everyone beware of next year.
Also the fact that it's not the first time I've heard that people are surprised I'm still here, which I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, I think people are like, Michelle is still watching a movie.
Yeah, I know. Ooh.
Which is funny because little behind the scenes nugget here. Michelle is like, what are you, season 8 of Who's the Boss?
Oh my God, I'm so close to being done. Yeah, I'm on season 8 of Who's the Boss.
I haven't watched a TV show in years. Years. And Michelle's just casually, you're texting Krista and I. Oh my gosh, I started Who's the Boss? It's so funny. Haha, Tony Danza. And then like a few weeks later, you were like, oh yeah, I'm on season 8. I'm like, season?
Okay, it is not a few weeks later. I have been watching this show since December. This has been a very long haul watch.
2 seasons a month.
Give or take, I guess. I mean, they're 20-minute episodes, so I watch them before bed.
Hey, look, I am the last person to media shame anybody.
Oh, I didn't think you were shaming me.
I'm just saying, it's funny to me.
Yeah. Well, I'm committed now, and well, anyway, I shouldn't go on a tangent about Who's the Boss, but if you like Who's the Boss, send us an email. Send us an email.
I had no idea that Who's the Boss had that many seasons.
Yeah, and they're like 22 to 24 episode long seasons.
The theme song is like, brand new life.
Brand new life around the bend. And it has changed. It has changed like 4 times. It has changed 4 times. It took... Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
If you want to be like Matt, send us an email, moviefriendspodcast@gmail.com. Are you connected to famous people? Send us an email. We'd love to hear about it.
Yeah. Tell us your story, your connections. We had people write in and tell us their, who they have issues with. Kate? It's Kate Hudson, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Your Kate Hudson stories.
Your Kate Hudson stories. So are you connected or do you have a Kate Hudson story? We want to hear it.
Question. In Pixar's Toy Story, the carpet in Sid's house comes from what movie? Hi, I'm Brian Rollins, host and creator of the Dorky, Geeky, Nerdy Trivia Podcast. Every week, I bring you 30 new trivia questions on a different topic. We've covered Star Wars, Star Trek, Harry Potter, comic books, movies, and so much more. Every episode is designed to be played like your own personal game of Jeopardy or pub trivia. You can play along solo or with a group of friends. Join me every Wednesday for new trivia. You can find us at dorkygeekynerdy.com. Oh, the answer to my question was The Shining. The carpet in Sid's house was inspired by the flooring in the Overlook Hotel. I hope to see you soon at Dorky Geeky Nerdy.
Before we watch a movie for the first time, we record our pre-watch thoughts. I forgot to do this, which I'm so upset about.
Me
It's like
too.
I don't have that many opportunities to do it,
I know.
And I really didn't do it.
Yeah.
So, but Michelle did because she's a real person.
And
So
I understand the assignment.
let's go to that real quick.
Fade in. Interior. Michelle's living room. Afternoon. Michelle is seated on the couch with a bowl of popcorn. She grabs the remote to put on Last of the Mohicans, a film she's never seen. Michelle, to camera. Everyone seems to love this movie, so I'm hoping to be surprised. All I've been told is there's action, there's love, there's adventure. We'll see. Fade out.
Wow, I gotta tell you, this is like my new favorite pre-watch thought.
You think so? Was it fun?
Michelle's life narrated as a screenplay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
Thanks.
Did that just come to you?
It did. Yeah. I was inspired because I was going through some old books and I found my Malcolm in the Middle script and my 5th grade Mary Poppins play script that I was in.
Oh.
And so I started reading them and I was like, oh, I should do this week's pre-watch thought as like the first page of a script.
Who were you in Mary Poppins?
I was storyteller number 5.
Okay. Great.
Yep. I have the script if you ever just want to, for funsies, read
Storyteller
number 5. So yeah, so different people were assigned to be the storyteller to narrate the story at different parts of the show.
Of a play that's happening live in front of people.
Correct.
That they have to be told what they're seeing.
I really wanted to be a chimney sweeper, but I could read, so they gave me storyteller number 5.
Got it.
They're like, you can enunciate your voice, storyteller.
Right.
I was like, I just want to be ensemble and dance and be dirty.
Oh man, that's why you do the summaries too.
Well, no, you made me do the summaries.
You're stuck. You've been stuck as storyteller number 5.
Yeah.
So before we get into this movie, quickly, we're going to predict each other's rating of this film. And I know I'm not. This is not a guess for me. I feel confident in this one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good luck, Buttercup. Oh, you mean guessing for me or you?
Guessing for you.
Oh. Well.
Michelle's got her pen. I'm ripping a piece of paper. All right. Done. Not even thinking about it.
Done. Not even thinking about it.
Neither of us picked this movie. This was Patron suggested, Patron voted, and 2 people actually suggested this movie independently of each other, if you can believe that. They thought adventure movies, something that Michelle and Seth haven't done. Boom, The Last of the Mohicans. Can you believe that?
What I also can't believe is that we both haven't seen it. Like me, sure, but you. That's really what's getting me.
This is one that just got away from me for years and years. My mom, as you know, if you listen to this show, she's a big fan of action movies. Very, very big fan of stories that depict Native Americans. So this is a big movie for her.
Yeah.
In thinking about doing this movie, I realized this is the earliest set film that we've ever covered. If you don't count the opening of 2001: A Space Odyssey, which I don't.
No, I wouldn't count that either. No.
So I kind of realized without realizing that I've been putting out my distaste for period pieces.
Wow.
Like here on the show, because I've gotten to pick how many movies, and I've never been like, oh, let's do, this movie from this time period.
Is it because you actually really truly have a distaste for them, or
I really do.
You really do?
I really do.
Why is that? Can you elaborate a little bit?
I can't explain it. I don't know, man.
Can you not relate? No.
It's not that I can't relate.
It can't be.
I don't know. It's there are very, very few period pieces that I like absolutely love, you know?
Yeah. Like what?
Seven Samurai would be one. Really any like Kurosawa samurai films. Um
Now here's a question. While you're thinking about that, I'm going to
yeah,
interrupt you.
yeah.
What's considered a period piece? Is it
To
anything that
me.
doesn't to you, but in general, is it just a story, a film, a piece of art that doesn't take place during the current time?
Yeah, so like now if you made a movie about, you know, the early days of the Beatles, that would have to be a period piece cuz everything that's on screen would have to be staged and put in.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's like a pretty large statement for you to say you don't like
I
period
know.
pieces.
I know. And, you know, across the board, is that the truth? No. You
Right.
know, but
Yeah.
like historical epics, you know, that
Yeah.
kind of a thing. Like
Yeah.
Braveheart, I'm kind of like, The Patriot, I'm
So
like,
maybe it's more like historical fiction instead of period pieces.
But clearly I'm not in love with them because I would have been picking them left and right. And this is the
Right.
first time that we're doing one over 100 episodes in. So
And I'm thankful that you don't enjoy them.
This is
Uh,
also close to the first war movie that we've done.
yeah, I was trying to think. I think I'm like thinking about like our Studio Ghibli movies.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there are fantastic, life changing war movies, but it's also kind of not one of my favorite genres.
Which I again thank you for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay, can we start with that? Do you consider this movie a war movie? Because I was like really racking my brain if I've ever seen war movies. Like I know in school, I think I watched parts of The Patriot, but I don't
Okay.
remember it.
Okay.
Besides that, I have not seen any war movies. So I have nothing to base it off of if this would
Yeah.
be considered, or is this just like historical fiction, an epic? You know, I sent you what it was labeled as, and I was like, tell me what you're not, because it was like drama, adventure, romance,
Right.
war.
War, historical. This is, I think, a bit of a talking point among a lot of people is what kind of a movie is this? Because we're blurring the lines here with a lot of stuff. Some people go out as far as to say that this is an expressionistic film, which is very interesting to me. I would probably put this in the category of like a historical epic
Yeah.
because
Okay.
we're dealing with war and we have a few war scenes, but the majority of our main characters are straight up not soldiers.
Mm.
And not that you can't have a war movie with, you know, main characters who aren't soldiers, but all of the war stuff is kind of, it's like the setting, but it's not the point, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe this is a chase movie, like just like a very, very slow, maybe this is a revenge thriller, you know, depending on whose point you're looking at.
Oh, that's interesting. A revenge
And, you know,
thriller.
Michael Mann is a great director, great storyteller of complex, gray area characters. One of one of the reviews that I read was complaining that you can't really tell like who the bad people are and if you're supposed to be rooting for France, if you're supposed to be rooting for England, if you're supposed to be rooting for Magua. And
Mm.
I like that. And it's one of the things that I like best about this movie, actually. Clearly, the Mohicans here are really nice, good guys, and
Yeah.
they're going out of their way to protect these two women. And then once they get to the fort, they're trying to get the families out so they can go protect their homes. Like they're really good. So we have very clear like good guys. It's
Yes.
just the bad guys here aren't as clear.
Yeah. What else has Man done? I don't know anything about him.
He's primarily known as the director of Heat, which is considered to be one of the great crime action movies of all time. which I would agree with. It's an awesome movie. You've got Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Val Kilmer. It's great. It's 170 minutes. I would love to talk about it one day just because I would love for you to see it one day.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also done Thief with James Caan, which is an incredible movie. He did Manhunter, which they remade into the movie Red Dragon with Edward Norton.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Hannibal Lecter
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
He did Collateral with Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx. He did the Miami Vice movie a few years back.
Yeah. So a lot of these titles I have heard before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He makes kind of like big movies. They're not small indie movies. He makes big production movies that are kind of complicated.
Yeah.
You have to think a little bit more than just like, hey, whiz bang boom pop, good guy, bad guy, the
Bang,
day
bang.
saved. Yeah.
Right. I don't know if you did any of this in your research or if you found any of this, but like, how does this compare to the book and the other movies out there? Because before I started watching this, I saw there was a silent one.
Yeah.
And there was another version. I was like, let me make sure I'm going to watch the correct one we're talking about with DDL. But what did you find? Did you find any research on that?
There's 10 film adaptations of The Last of the Mohicans.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it's part of a 5-part book series.
Wow.
From James Fenimore Cooper. This is the second installment in the series. It's called the Leatherstocking series because this area is called the Leatherstocking region, upstate New York.
Okay.
I also appreciated at one point when Duncan first talks to Cora, she's standing by this big apple press with a horse that's bringing the wheel around to crush the apples. And I was like, upstate New York apples. We love apples up here.
This feels at home.
Did you know that New York is the biggest producer of apples in America?
What?
Yes.
Wow.
And another name for New York is Apple Country.
And then the Big Apple.
And the Big Apple. And that's why it's called that.
You're welcome.
And I don't even like apples.
Oh, come on. I eat an apple every day.
No.
Oh, yeah. Green apple.
You're the person who told us all about the doctor.
That was me. That's me. I'm not kidding, though. I eat an apple every day. My Granny Smith apple, usually around like 4 p.m.
Oh, Granny Smith, that's your favorite?
That's my favorite. Yeah. I know it's not yours.
Worst. That's the worst apple, man.
In your opinion. I love
Macintosh sucks too.
I'll eat that. I'll eat any apple given to me, but we purchase Granny Smith for me.
Wow. Okay. All right. I'm a big fan of Golden Delicious.
Oh,
that's my favorite apple.
It's a great one.
Yeah. Or Pink Lady.
Oh, I was just going to say that. Love that one too. Yeah.
Those ones are good.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, this movie differs from the book in a lot of the plot points are different and characters are different. There's some things from the book that would have made some things in the movie make a little bit more sense. For example, Cora is supposed to be the daughter of Monroe with a slave. And that's why they keep referring to her as the one with dark hair.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. Okay. And she gravitates more towards the Mohicans than Alice does, who is fully white.
Yes.
In the book, the dad, Chingachgook, keeps referring to Uncas as the last of the Mohicans. So in the end of this one, when he says, I am the last of the Mohicans, it should have like a bigger impact because his son is dead now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at this point, my biggest gripe with this movie is that we don't get enough of those two talking.
I agree.
It sucks. Yeah,
we wanted to see more of them.
Like when we get to that ending and they're standing on the mountain, I'm like, wait, is this the first time I'm hearing this guy talk through the entire movie?
Yeah, it seemed like it.
He's just been bashing people down with his giant guitar sword thing.
Well, I guess then it just provides a powerful punch at the end.
Yeah, which we needed.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to talk to you about wigs.
Wigs.
In colonial frontier America.
Yes.
Can you imagine using resources so that all these men can wear these silly wigs?
You tell me.
What is the story?
I guess you're hot. All the time. Sweaty.
Can you imagine upstate New York in the summer and you're walking around in these full military coats and garters and buckles, and then you put a
Yeah.
wig on top of your head?
Right. Do you ever watch current like English judicial shows? Because they still wear the wigs.
No, I can't take them seriously. And I'm sorry to our listeners in the Britain land. I
Britain
can't
land.
take you seriously at all. I don't get it. I don't
It's
understand this.
fascinating. It's fascinating, actually.
And Duncan is wearing like red-haired wig.
Yeah.
And then they keep referring to Colonel Monroe as gray hair.
Yes. Is it a wig though?
Oh yeah, they're all wearing wigs.
Well,
No
okay.
one's hair does that.
Okay. Yes, they're wearing a wig because they're in a period piece.
Yeah.
But in the actual, like, it's not supposed to, like, we're not supposed to think it's a wig. Like, yes, they're wearing a wig because it's part of costuming, but I think that's just their hair. No?
You
I
think
took it
that
as
the
that's just
characters? No, the characters
Like-
aren't putting little curlers in the side of their hair, and they're slapping a wig on it. No,
I don't know. I didn't think Duncan's was
I
like.
think Duncan's was. I could be
Huh.
wrong. I couldn't stop thinking about these wigs, though. I'm sorry. Every time
Wow,
I
I
see
didn't-
this, I just
Yeah, I didn't
lose
really
my
focus
mind.
too much on that. The gray hair one, yes, but I was
Yeah.
just like, oh, that's just his hair. Like,
No,
because we
I
never
don't
saw
think
him
so.
put it on.
Well, we didn't see them do a lot of things, but
And oh, well, that's very
Yeah.
interesting, Seth.
yeah. And you're like anti-wig.
I feel like that's a very strong statement.
I feel like you've said it.
I have, right? I have said I have a fear of wigs. It's more so I get like creeped out by real hair wigs because I think of scalping and it gives me like
Right.
the heebie-jeebies.
Which we get a little scalping in this movie.
We do. This movie
Yeah.
was very, very violent. But
I liked the scalping in this movie.
who says that? What kind of statement is that?
I
You
liked
liked
the scalping
in this movie?
Well, because it was happening, but it wasn't like a big focus, like how you show things
Yeah.
really frames what
Yeah.
you're trying to tell people, right? And so
Mhm.
in this movie, we didn't get like a low zoom in and then like a dude like lift the scalp up and blood sprays and he screams and we're like, oh my God. Just as they're killing people, they're scalping people. I liked it. I thought it was like subtle. It was like the most subtle scalping I've ever seen.
All right.
Tasteful scalping. I thought. Maybe you didn't.
No.
No.
Didn't think this was tasteful scalping. It's
Okay.
just scalping in my mind. Scalping is
Isn't
scalping.
it weird? We have 2 times in the English language that we say scalping, and one refers to cutting off the top of someone's head as a trophy, and the other one refers to reselling a ticket that you've purchased.
Oh, I never thought of that.
There's a lot of different characters here. There's a lot of moving parts to this story. I do think it's a pretty simple story. So even though there's a lot of people to talk about, I really want to talk about Magua.
Yeah, you're itching to talk about it. What you got? What do you think? Are you
I
confused by the decisions that he chose to do?
No,
He's a
not at
Mohawk,
all.
but he, presents himself as a Mohawk. He's a liaison, but he's
Yeah.
really a Heron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is the best character in this movie.
You think so?
I think, yeah, definitely.
Interesting.
I also am not entirely sure that he's wrong.
In what way?
So you know how we did The Godfather Part 1 and Part 2, and we
Mhm.
talk about how people like love Michael and they think that Michael's so great, but really
Mhm.
the story is about how Michael is a villain, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, this story is about how Magua is a villain, but if we told the story a little differently, this would be like a Michael Corleone type story where it's a guy who had like everything taken from him. Like he says, his family was killed. His wife was married off to somebody else. He lost his identity because he had to go and live with this other nation, the Mohawks. And he blames it all on Colonel Monroe. And so his goal in this movie is I'm going to cut out his heart and I'm going to kill his kids so that it's the end of his line and we're done. Like,
Yeah, we're gonna seek revenge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's on a revenge path.
Yeah.
It's just that he's contrasted with Daniel Day-Lewis and Cora, who are on this like love path, right? So we're always gonna be like, oh, you know, the Brits, the Europeans come here and they're not exactly good
No.
to the nations that are already here.
Right.
And so
Right.
like put yourself in his shoes. I agree with him. Like I don't agree with everything that he does,
Right.
but I understand where he's coming from. And that's why, to me, I think he's the best character in this movie.
Well said. I didn't think of it like that, but I see where you're going at. He's kind of like from Princess Bride.
Oh, Inigo?
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
He's like
Exactly.
Inigo. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Where if we were telling the story and, you know, Count Rugen was the main character and it was all about Humperdinck falling in love with Buttercup and wanting to marry her,
Exactly.
we'd be like, oh, well,
Right.
Inigo, he's such a bad guy.
And we
So-
kind of be rooting for Magua. Like,
Exact-
seek revenge. Seek
I'm
revenge.
and like I'm not rooting for him because the way that we're looking at it, it's like, all right, here's two poor defenseless women in
Well.
the upstate New York wilderness being attacked. I'm not like, yeah, kill them. But in his mind, it's not about them being women.
No. No.
And it's not about, oh, I'm going to kill all white people. It's about, I'm killing Colonel Monroe. I'm killing his kids. And that's it.
Right. It's
then
specific.
towards the
One
end,
person.
I think that he starts to feel for Alice. And that's something that's not super fleshed out. On my rewatch, I did notice Alice and Yunkus sharing more moments than I realized that they were sharing.
Right. Something could have been there.
Yeah, I think that he's at least feeling a little something for her towards the end.
Magua.
Yeah. But for him, he just wants justice. If they die or if they marry into his family, you know, whatever.
Right.
Whatever it
Yeah.
will be, you know, that's
Right.
he's just looking for justice. And that's
Yeah.
why that scene where they talk to the sachem and it's kind of like, all right, I want this person to die and this thing to happen. And then Hawkeye shows up and he's like, well, actually it should be this, and they're just like moving parts around. And he's not happy. Like he's like, well, I'm going to go over to this other town and we'll see what they think. Right. But he just wants justice. He's in the pursuit of, you know, his version of justice for what was done to him.
Yeah.
And you can call me crazy, but I like I said, I don't agree, but I understand. I understand.
Yeah.
him.
Okay. I'm glad you discussed this because what you're saying makes a lot of sense when you look at it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like
He's
your
just-
kids are killed. What are you going to do?
Right. He's not just killing to kill.
Yeah, you're just going to like be like, "Oh, okay, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I'm Mohawk now and the Mohawk work with Colonel Monroe. So I guess I work with Colonel Monroe now." Like, no way.
No,
he sees an
no.
opportunity and so that whole backstory that we get from him, it's the motivator for like everything that happens. And I think it was part of why I was like a little confused at first because I was like, wait, why is this guy betraying?
Right.
Yeah.
I was confused too. And then I read some more and that helped. And then you explaining again helped more. And it definitely makes sense from this perspective.
How'd you feel about him cutting out the heart?
Yeah. I turned away.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. It made me squeamish. I was like, gosh, this is so graphic. I was by myself watching this. Aunt didn't watch it with me. So I was just like, ugh.
I watched this once by myself, and then I watched it a second time with my oldest son. And when it got to the heart cutting out scene, I like looked over at him, and he was kind of turning away a little bit. And I was like, what did you think about that?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, that was intense.
I love it.
And I was like, oh, was it? I didn't think it was that bad. Like, I think the movie's violent, but some of the fight, not to say that the fights aren't good, but there's a lot of like, hey, I hit you. Now you fall down. Now I keep going. Like, it's not like every time someone gets hit, there's blood spraying and guts falling out.
That's true. I guess so. Again, but like when you're not used to watching this type of genre of movie.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm over this. Stop.
Yeah.
That's how I got when we got to that part. I'm like, I'm done. Enough.
Did the scene where after they surrender and they're leaving the fort, and then Magua goes and gets like a whole battalion of like Huron warriors, and they start yelling in the woods. Did that freak you out?
No, it was just like a pending, you know, the anxiety was rising. I'm like, okay, here we go.
I don't know. I just imagined like you surrender to the French, right?
Yeah.
And they're working with multiple nations. And so they're like, you can leave, you can take your weapons, you can take your colors, you just go home. Like, just leave. Literally just leave. And so you're like walking, and then you're walking through the woods, and then you start hearing people scream on the other side of you.
Like,
I would have pooped my pants.
What do? You just,
nothing.
There's nothing
you die
you can do.
Is what
you die.
Do.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And then they come out both sides and they're just shooting at you.
Yeah,
oh
I mean,
my God.
you have nothing. That's it.
Yeah. So that's in the book, and that was something that actually did happen. Monroe did actually surrender. They let them leave, but the Huron didn't like come and kill everybody. What they did was they kind of went to like the back of the line, and they were like stealing stuff. They kidnapped some people. I think some people did die. And it was this like huge deal. It got published that 3,000 people were killed, but in reality, it wasn't that. The French general, like on the other side, he was so embarrassed by it because he had given his word that they would be allowed to go free. He paid his own money to like for ransom for the British people who had been kidnapped and stuff like that.
Wow.
So there's like 3 versions of this story. There's like the stuff that really happened that it's based around. There's the stuff from the book. And then there's the stuff that Mann decided to either include from real life or the book or the movie. He says that this is based on the 1936 version.
Oh, interesting.
And then like his version of it. So by the time we're done, like we're so far down the line that this is nowhere
It's kind
near...
of like a completely new story.
Yeah, it's like a game of telephone.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Actually, there's that whole skit. Is it a Mad TV skit? And it's a game of telephone with Shaq. And you get to the end and the guy's like, oh, tonight we're going to read from The Last of the Mohicans. Is this whole...
No, I don't know that
Anthony's like, the only reason I know The Last of the Mohicans is from this skit. And it's a game of telephone.
Wow. I have to look that up. I'm fascinated now.
I'll send it to you, and Shaq is in it. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, yes. I love Shaq.
Yeah. Who doesn't?
So I want to talk about Duncan and Cora.
Let's just start with Duncan first.
Okay.
Because Duncan was probably one of my happies. I did happies and crappies for this movie.
Oh, very cool.
And so Duncan, I was the most surprised by on multiple levels.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, starting with the way he's trying to court Cora.
Yes.
He's just like, oh, like respect and friendship. Like, we'll grow to love each other. Duh. What do you think about that whole thing? Because I've been there. Hey, listen, when I was in some of my early relationships, started off as friends, I liked the attention, and it kind of grew into a relationship because you're young and you're trying to navigate emotions, right? But when she says she's not into it, she's not into it.
It's crazy. It sucks because when we first see them together, they're genuinely happy to see each other. Like it's
because they know each other.
Yeah, it's not like Mr. Hayworth kind of a thing, and he's like kissing her hand, and like we've seen that type of relationship play out several times.
Yeah.
In this, they are happy to see each other, and then we cut to them at the tiniest table in the middle of the biggest field for tea, for a picnic, for...
Who set this up? There's not a house in sight. So someone dragged the table out there, dragged these 2 chairs, set the scape. I laughed. I was like, is this a joke right now? Okay.
Yeah.
And when you texted me that, and I was asleep and I read it in the morning, I'm like, okay, good. We're on the same page.
It's such a silly sight. Like, it's almost like a sight gag.
Exactly.
Like, I expected him to start off by being like, okay, Now that we're at the table of marriage proposal,
Right.
we
Right.
we can speak freely.
It was so strange.
It's very strange. He's a dunce. Like, he's like a pro England dude. You
Yeah.
know, he's super suspicious and hates Hawkeye throughout the whole thing. So of course we're not gonna like him.
Yeah, well, he feels threatened,
Yeah.
and he's just acting the way that's ingrained in him.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really like hating Duncan at this point. I'm kind of just like watching him with caution. I'm like, okay.
I don't hate him. I'm just like, oh, you're such a loser. And that might be because I'm an American and I have a great distrust for British military around this time in our history for good reason, right?
Sure.
And it's like, oh, here's this stuffy nerd from London. He says to her, we'll be the most marvelous couple in all of London. I'm like, dude, I just want to flick your nose right now. Like, you're such a dweeb. And then you're going up against Daniel Day-Lewis, who's been living in the forest for months preparing for this movie. The coolest American dude ever, who, when they're asking for people to join the fight, he's like, he's like leaning on his rifle. He's like, I don't believe in anyone. I don't support anything. You can go get scalped. I'm going to go play lacrosse. And then like rips his shirt off and goes and like plays lacrosse, and they're whooping and hollering. And I'm like, yeah, dude, if my girl that I'm trying to get engaged with is hanging out with Hawkeye, I'm gonna be really upset too. I'm gonna try to get him arrested because there's no way that I'm ever gonna be in competition with him.
That's right. Yeah. But he pulls through though. Duncan.
He does. And it's so surprising, right?
It is really surprising. I mean, he takes one for the team, and that team is love.
Absolutely. And it kind of changes a lot about how I saw him.
Yeah.
Prior to those events. I feel bad because he gets, like, time and again, he just gets the brunt of Daniel Day-Lewis's DDL, his like snide and his like stares. And
well, yeah, I mean, Hawkeye's just being himself. He's just like is unapologetically on the mission to help these two, and then they end up falling for each other.
When Duncan asks him, he's like, there's a war, how can you go west? And DDL turns around and he's like, well, you face north and then you turn to the left. It's like, dude, I'm sorry, there's no coming back from that. Like,
you don't stand a chance.
It might be close to my favorite scene in the movie when he sacrifices himself.
Yes, yeah. That is why it is the second happy of the film for me.
Yeah. So good on you, Duncan.
Good on you. Yeah.
You finally came around. You suck, but you did one good thing with your miserable British life.
Yeah. Jeez.
I wonder if you watch this movie in England and this happens and you're like really like shedding a tear and like saluting.
For Duncan?
You know? Yeah.
I don't know about that.
And you're like that's me, mate.
No. Shut it down.
That's giving it the old British try. Anyway. Cora.
Yeah.
How'd you feel about Cora? What'd you think?
She's fine. I have no feelings towards anyone in this movie except for Duncan. Duncan is who I feel the most passionate about.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. He fascinated me the most. Off of recording, behind the scenes friends, I texted Seth multiple times about how I didn't understand why these two women were even in the Albany area.
Yes, this is a big sticking point for you.
I can't let it go.
You kind of put it into my head, and it became a big point for me as well.
Yeah. And so to me, obviously, she is the love interest. Because I knew going into this that there was going to be some kind of love storyline. So once we meet her, I was like, okay, so you're not going to end up with Duncan. You're going to end up with DDL. That's how this is going down. So, I mean, I don't know. I just viewed them as two people, Cargo. And Alice, I found even more interesting, and the choice she makes at the end to commit suicide.
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like everyone kind of gets their scene, right?
They do. That is true.
It's just
they
there's
do.
not a lot in between everyone getting their scenes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's more so how I felt about Cora and Duncan and their scenes together, and then Cora and Hawkeye / Nathaniel / Nappy Boo Boo.
Natty Bumpo.
Natty. I was calling him Nappy. Natty. Yeah, multiple names that one, DDL. So it was more so like watching her rapport with both of those that I viewed her as. I wish I could view her as like a standalone character, but I actually am having trouble doing that.
You know, she's doing some like nursing stuff at the fort.
Yeah.
She shoots a dude because she grabs a pistol at one point and hides it.
Yes.
She's got some stuff to do. But when I said I really understand Magua's motivations, I do not understand DDL in this movie. Him and his brother and his dad are like, we are frontiersmen. We are going to Kentucky, or however they call it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We don't care about anyone or anything. And then he hangs out with Cora for like 10 minutes. And when they're at the fort, she's like, you could have left. Why didn't you leave? And he's like, what I'm interested in is right here. And I'm like, you knew it for like a very short amount of time to be now being Hun. But hey, man, this guy, it's everything or nothing, I guess, with Hawkeye, right?
That's a good way to put it. How did you feel when we finally learned some backstory about him? He's telling Cora his story.
Yeah, so he's adopted, and I can't speak for every, Native American nation because I, quite frankly, am not educated enough to do so. But it was common practice to be part of the people. Like you could be adopted in, and even if you weren't the same skin color, you were part. So like his dad sees him as Mohican because he's raised from the age of 1 as Mohican. And this movie, the book, the movie, we're doing this thing where it's like, well, we can talk about Native Americans, but we need this like white person proxy, right?
Right.
And so it can't just be about 3, full-blooded Native Mohicans. There has to be this like white guy in there. And then he becomes like the mouthpiece for his brother and for his dad. And that's what I was saying earlier. It's like kind of frustrating. We have these really 2 cool characters.
Yeah.
And we don't hear a ton from them. Like we're just hearing from Daniel Day-Lewis. And so that's frustrating. It's very frustrating. And that might be why I'm gravitating so much towards Magua, because it's like this dude is speaking for himself. He's telling his own story. It's interesting. It's complicated. And it's not just his story, but it's the story of what has happened to his people, his family. It's the story of what's happening with the government and the war that's going on around him. Anyway.
Yeah, no, it's definitely more interesting. And I don't know. And just these 2 having this conversation, because it starts, she's mad that they didn't stop to bury the people. And he's like, well, don't take it as I didn't know them. I just didn't want to leave a track so they would know we were there. But through that conversation, she's like, oh my God, I've never met someone so interesting before. Oh my God, you're so different.
True.
That's what it is. You're so different. You're not Duncan. Plus, like, hello, sir, chest. So I'm into you. And that's how that went.
Yeah.
That's how they fell for each other. So tell me about DDL. Did he go method? Because I need to know.
Yeah.
I'm sure he did. I don't really know much about DDL.
Yeah. I mean, DDL, he's the guy, man. He's the man of
going method.
The 90s until today. He's one of the standard for acting. When people talk about respectable actors and great performances, he's one of the guys who comes up. I think that he gave maybe the defining acting performance of our age in a film called There Will Be Blood. And I think that everyone has kind of been chasing that performance since then. That's why I say like defining. Like he made an incredible impression on acting. And he's great. Prior to this, he had won Best Actor for the film My Left Foot. He plays the real life painter Christy Brown, who had cerebral palsy, and he has won 4 Best Actor Oscars, which is the record, I believe. So everybody loves Daniel Day-Lewis, and he goes incredibly deep into his research for his roles. So for this one, he spent months doing wilderness training with guns. They started him on like modern guns and then worked their way all the way backwards.
That's cool.
To the long guns that they used, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Something that you might not notice in the film is whenever he's fighting and like cutting people, he's specifically cutting arteries. So he's not just like slashing at people, he's cutting parts of their body where they will die within minutes because you get cut there. And so when you watch the fights again, thinking of it like that, the camera's always focusing on, you know, he'll cut like behind their leg in a certain spot, and then he'll cut their wrist and then just runs off. And you don't need to disable that person anymore because they'll literally pass out within like a minute or something. Wow. So he was trained on doing all of that stuff. He also had to learn how to like hunt and trap. He actually spent the reports vary on the actual amount of time he spent on his own, but he did spend time after going through the training. Like, okay, I'm off into the wilderness now. Everything I'm going to eat, I'm going to hunt and trap and have to survive on my own. And he built a canoe to prepare himself for this.
How does he, maybe you don't know the answer for this, how is his mental health?
You know, I watched a pretty long interview with Michael Mann talking about this movie. And he talked about Daniel Day-Lewis. He only had really nice things to say about him. And he was like, when Daniel finishes a movie, he needs to take time to kind of like shed the person that he's become and like get back to himself.
Yeah.
I've never really heard any stories that I can recall about him being like crazy or like not a nice person or whatever.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Because that's a very intense, that's just intense. I can imagine to do that.
I feel like for a while people were talking about method acting a lot. And then the conversation became almost entirely people don't know what method acting really is. I'm not an actor, but as someone who has done things that require a lot of me mentally and physically, sometimes there's just like things that you need.
Yeah.
And so if this is what Daniel Day-Lewis needs and he has the time and the money, and for him to put himself out there and be on camera and give a performance that he can stand by, if he needs to do all this stuff, who cares? Like, let him do it. Why not?
Yeah. It's so interesting.
I'll tell you what, I believe him as someone who lives and traps and works, you know, in the wilderness in this movie. He's like cut, you know, he's not a flabby dude walking off the street being like, you know, like I hunt elk for a living.
Yeah.
Like physically, I believe him in this movie.
Did you find him and Cora's relationship, did you take it seriously? Did you find it believable?
No, I think it's the worst part of this movie.
Is it because it's the romance of it all? Like the overarching, just like this was thrown in there, or just these two together as a couple? I don't even want to call them a couple because they're not like, it's very passionate.
It's very passionate, yeah. You know, I can't speak for the characters and what they're feeling. For me, this is a big movie about big things, and I don't need two people being in love to be one of the motivating factors in it. There's so much else happening here.
Yeah, I feel the same.
Yeah.
I think even I could have seen the passion without some, like when they finally make out and,
Yeah.
it went on for too long. And I'm not a
Yeah.
prude. Don't call me a
Yeah.
prude. I'm not a prude. It went on for too long. And then it cuts to a scene of him just like holding her. And I'm like,
Yeah.
we don't need this.
Yeah.
Maybe just show that. And that would have been like the passion. Because, I
Sure.
guess we do need some of that. I don't know, but I was not a fan of this love story. But I feel like on this show, it has been a theme that I'm not a fan of the love stories. But like, I do love love.
Just between perhaps a successful businesswoman and the man that she hires to take care of her house and her kids. And
I was
who's
like,
the boss?
where are we going with this? Oh, back to who's the boss. Yeah. Anyway, okay.
Going back to what I kind of briefly mentioned about this being considered like somewhat expressionistic, there's 4 big sequences throughout this movie where there's no dialogue. There's the opening scene where they're hunting. There's the scene outside of Fort William Henry where they're being sieged by the French. There's the fight scene that we already mentioned. Then there's the whole final sequence, which is like 15 minutes long, and there's just no real talking. There's not like big monologues. I love when Magua just reaches out to Alice. He seems afraid in that moment.
Did you believe him that he actually was going to help her? Or did you think he would take her and then kill her?
No. I didn't think he was going to kill her. Did you?
I was torn on that. I liked that scene a lot because
it's complicated.
It's so complicated.
Yeah.
But ultimately she does it on her terms. And then he sits with it for like 0.5 seconds and we got to move on.
Yeah.
We can't.
So the whole like love scene, make out, whatever between the two of them, that, I think where man is in a place where he's trying to communicate a lot of things without words. And you and I both watched the definitive director's cut, right? The original ending did not have the dad's speech.
How did it end?
It just ends with them like looking. Man put that back in and he was like, I felt like we didn't need it. He's like, I felt like just him like looking out kind of expressed everything that he says. And I'm like, I don't think so at all. So that also kind of helped me see kind of what he was going for here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I want to quickly talk about waterfall caves and the I will find you thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Did you like the waterfall cave thing? You seem to not love it.
I felt that when we have the canoe, when we jump the waterfall, I don't think we need to like zoom out to show. It seemed comical to me and looked fake.
Yes. Yeah.
Like just keep a perspective point of view of like you were in the front of it going down. I think would have been more effective than like wide shot. Let's see this little boat go off a waterfall and then we see it again. It was like this whole movie looks so good, and then those 2 scenes, I was like, this falls short for me. I would have liked to have just remained in like because we're tight on it, but let's remain in the canoe and actually like go down, or just show like I don't know. We didn't need like I didn't need to see the whole boat. It was whatever. That's my own. Yeah.
I love anytime there's a cave behind a waterfall. I know this is an odd detail to love.
Do you like the sound and like feeling the mist?
I don't know. I think it might go back to playing video games for me.
Oh, okay.
Because anytime you're playing any kind of like game where exploring is part of it.
Yeah.
If you see a waterfall,
yes,
you got to stop what you're doing and be like, is there something behind this waterfall? And you know what? A lot of times there is.
Can you name a specific board you're referencing?
Earthbound. Great role-playing game for Super Nintendo. Basically any Legend of Zelda game, if you see a waterfall, you got a good chance, man, that there's going to be something behind it.
I love actually physically being in that because you get the smell. I love the smell. I get like the condensation that comes off and you feel it, the sound. It's like sensory overload in like a really good way.
I understand Hawkeye's kind of like motivation in that moment, which is, hey, they're going to find us And if we're here, there's going to be a fight.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So I'm going to jump out of this waterfall now, and I'll come back and find you. And so I get that. And I do think, his whole line there, whatever happens, stay alive. I will find you no matter how far you go. I think that that's good. But
What was that? I'm sorry.
He delivers this great, tearjerker moment of the movie, declaration of love, and then just kind of like turns around and goes, "Yeep," and, and like hops out of this water.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's funny. It's funny to me.
It is.
It's funny.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So yeah, the little like
right
thing that he does out kind of undercuts some of the drama of the moment.
LOL.
Plus, I'd be like, hey, they're coming to find us. Why don't you guys head out? We'll stay here. We'll be right behind you. I won't have to climb up a waterfall to get to you guys. And then, yeah, we kind of briefly touched on it, but when they do catch up with them, Uncas goes and fights Magua, and they fight, and Magua kills him, and then kicks him off the cliff very unceremoniously. It's really rough. It's very sad.
Yeah.
Especially if you think that him and Alice maybe like had something brewing there. And then in the scuffle, Alice breaks free and just like, did you think she was going to jump? Like, what did you think was going to happen?
Yeah, I did.
I
did think she was going to. Well, when she's overlooking and she's thinking about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's taking it into her own hands. Yeah. What I thought was a choice is that we actually turned to see her body on the ground.
That was intense, right?
That's intense.
Yeah.
The punch was provided if we just saw the action of her jumping, but the fact that like we see this bird's eye view of her body, that was like, oh wow.
I was very surprised by it, and I thought someone would grab her or she would see them coming around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. She really goes through with it.
Yeah. And so Cora is just left with her new love and father-in-law. Are you glad you had to go see your dad? Think about this, Cora.
And then, yeah, the ending, in American society, it's easier to ignore what's going on with the native nations than to think about it. And the end of this movie is kind of like, I'm the last of the Mohicans. Meanwhile, not true. The Mohicans are still around today. Yes, when this book was written, they had a certain amount of knowledge. And then when the first films were made, they had a certain amount of knowledge. But all the way up to like 1992, 91, it still feels a little crazy to call this movie The Last of the Mohicans and to push this message out. Because it's like, oh, hey, actually, we're not. We're over here. And it's like, oh, no, it's so tragic. It's so sad. They're gone. It's like, no, we're not gone. We're here.
Right.
It's like, oh, no, if only they were around.
Yeah.
And it's like, we are around. It's like, no, like, let's just pretend that they're gone. And that's the part of this that just doesn't quite sit right with me. Like, they could have literally just changed the name and people would have still gone to see it.
Right.
So this movie was made for $40 million, went $7 million over budget. And when I saw the budget for this, my eyes bugged out of my head. I couldn't believe it cost this much money. They spent $6 million on the fort. They built that fort. They also built the waterfall.
They built the waterfall?
They couldn't find the waterfall, the behind the waterfall scene. That cave.
Oh.
They couldn't find one that they wanted that worked.
It.
And so they built that.
I was like, they didn't build the outside of the waterfall.
When I found out they spent $6 million on the fort, I was like, it makes sense why we're spending so much time looking at the outside of this fort.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, 20 minutes on this thing. That's
right.
All right. That's worth $6 million.
Yeah.
This goes on to make $143 million at the box office. It has 88 on Rotten Tomatoes, 3.7 on Letterboxd, 76 on Metacritic. This version is not in the National Film Registry, but the 1920 version is.
Wow.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
wish that I had had more time. I wanted to watch either the 1920 version or the 1936 version.
Yeah.
That Michael Mann watched that as a kid, projected in a church basement. They used to project movies. And so he went and saw Last of the Mohicans, and he said it just like always stuck in his brain. And he said the thing that stood out to him was like the contrast of like the British soldiers in their like perfect uniforms versus the Native Americans in all of their handmade natural stuff, and just like the two kind of forces. Ebert gave this 3 stars.
Okay.
This was in production from June 17th to October 10th.
Okay.
And they did a lot of tactical stuff, man.
Where was this
Mann
shot?
said, huh?
Where was this filmed?
They filmed this in the Carolinas. They did not film it
okay.
in New York. Yeah.
Okay.
And
I didn't think so.
Mann, part of why they did it was he's like, we needed ancient forests. We needed trees that had been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so it was easier to go south and find what they were looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a segment of the show where we talk about what we would cut, what we would edit, and what we would keep. It's called What the Keck. So I'll go first. I don't know what I would cut because the original cut of this film was 3 hours long, and he cut it down. Yep, he cut it down. There's a lot of stuff in here that I'm bored by.
Yeah.
But I think you need to like rewrite this from the ground up to cut stuff, because I do think most stuff is benefiting the story. Editing, I would edit down some of the fort stuff. Especially at my second time, I was like, oh, wowie, wow. I'm really learning about how the French would very slowly, incrementally advance on a fort. Gee whiz. Yeah. And then I'm keeping everything with Magua. I'm giving him more time. And I'm maybe making this like, I'm cutting out the love stuff, and I'm making this a dual-sided movie of Hawkeye and Magua.
Ooh.
Two versions of this war and the people that it affects. And, you know, there are 2 ways of dealing with it.
I like it.
Yeah. How about you?
Okay. I am cutting the scene of Hawkeye holding Cora after they make love, because I don't think it's necessary. We literally just, the next scene is him just holding her, and his arm is like around her, and they're just like staring off. We can cut that completely. It adds nothing.
Okay.
I'm also editing down the fort scenes because too much. And I am keeping, there's a shot in the beginning, and it's showing travel, and it's over a bridge, and it's a beautiful reflection.
Yes.
I am keeping that because that was my number one happy of this film.
Great shot. And that, I thought that was a good introduction of, we have the 3 Mohicans running through the forest.
Yes.
And we see them traversing, right? It's very drums, chaotic, frenetic, blah, 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 blah. And then we cut to this bridge, and this is like, all right, now this is Duncan's world. This is Cora's world. And it's very different.
Refined.
It's a great shot.
It's polished. It's really great. And that could easily be taken out, but no, this is being kept in.
So we asked some friends on Twitter what they thought. Sparky About Movies, a.k.a. Shauna, at Cinema of Screams. She says, Last of the Mohicans is a tragic film. The acting is powerful, the scenes are brutal, but the locations are beautiful to look at, and its score really makes the movie boom. One of my all-time favorite war films. Question. Do you think Alice jumped to save herself from Magua because there was no other way, or because she loved Uncas?
Ooh, I think both. She was saving herself because, and she also loved Uncas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's mostly the first one. I kind of am amazed we didn't talk about it, but this score rules. I don't know if you liked it or not, but I'm not like a big score guy. Many times throughout watching this, I was like, oh my God, this score is really, really going to town here. 1999, the podcast, at 1999, the podcast.
Whoa.
They say saw it 4 times in the theater. Somehow the score, which went through 2 different incredible composers in Edelman and Jones, and which had a theme borrowed by yet a 3rd composer, Dougie MacLean, managed to be perhaps the best score of the 1990s.
Whoa.
Huge if true.
Wow.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Kevin McNamara at Laid Back Mac.
Laid back Mac.
Isn't that great?
I love it. Yes.
He says, love this movie. The cinematography, the score, and the acting were all marvelous. Daniel Day-Lewis was great, but Wes Studi's performance was superb.
Yeah.
Might be sacrilegious, but I think he's acting the best in this movie. I think he's out acting DDL, because DDL is great in this, but he's not given a lot to do beyond running and fighting and
I
cutting.
agree.
And
Also, his accent was so interesting to me.
it is, right? It's an interesting choice. But hey, you know what? Knowing him, that's probably exactly how people in upstate New York in 1757 talked.
Right, because it sounded a little Southern to me. Did you feel that way?
Yeah. It's
like Southern as we know.
It
Was interesting. Okay, but you're right. You're right. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Sean Shank.
Shawnee.
At Tyler_Burnham says,
do you think I should give new nicknames to our friends? Do you think it's time for a freshen up? Okay, continue. We don't need to do this right now. I'm just like, Shawnee! Sean.
Sean Shank becomes Shank. So Shank a lot? Maybe.
I like that.
You never know.
Or workshop it. Okay.
He says, you stay alive no matter what occurs. I will find you. No matter how long it takes. No matter how far. I will find you. Maybe the most romantic line I've ever heard in a movie. Michelle is making a vomit face.
You're not supposed to tell the people that. That was just for you, Seth. Yeah, maybe. Maybe that is the most romantic line in a movie.
Oh, I would have to think about that. What's the most
what do you
romantic
think, Seth?
line?
That's a really good question. That is a really, really good question.
Whenever people talk about romance and yearning, and I know you're going to roll your eyes at this, but I always go back to In the Mood for Love.
No.
And just the aura between the 2 leads. Like when I think of romance, that's what I think of. God, that movie's so good.
When, you know what, in 10 Things I Hate About You,
Mm-hmm.
when Patrick sings, that to me is like...
Yeah, and buys her a guitar at the end.
Yeah, again, but that's not like a line I have to like really think about. There's probably a line in that movie that I'd be like, this is it.
Well, she says, what does she say? She says, you bought me a guitar. Yeah. He says something back to her.
Yeah.
But like you find out that
I know
the money that he made, he took and used to buy her.
I mean, that's a perfect.
We talked about that on our
movie.
10 Things I Hate About You episode, by the way, if you want to hear us talk about that for 2 hours. Karen Vera at Details Later.
Okay, Karen.
Isn't that great? Isn't that a great handle?
Who are these people? I am loving this lineup tonight.
Hey, The Last of the Mohicans brought out a lot of new followers, new commenters. People love this movie.
I am
sorry
a fan.
to everyone who just listened to us.
Yeah, sorry.
Not love
Karen,
it. For the
hi.
But yeah, Details Later.
Amazing.
Or it's Detail Slater, and I'm...
Either way, I like that one too.
Karen says, I love how the story of the, quote, villain, Duncan, turns out to be the secret hero of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
That scene that unfolded with multiple languages, followed by the twist, shocked and surprised me when I saw it in cinemas.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
And good for Hawkeye, shooting him in the face so he doesn't burn to death.
Yeah, we don't want him to be more tortured.
Yeah.
Put him out of his misery. Mm-hmm.
Right. They don't just like flee. He actually.
Yeah.
So there's some people that we do know. Now we go to a segment of the show where we hear from people that we don't know. It's called Half Star, 3-Star, 5-Star. Half Star, 3-Star, 5-Star. All right, so these are reviews from letterboxd.com, which is a website and an app where you can log, rate, and review films. We start with a half-star review and go all the way up to a 5-star review. The half-star, I will read. I'm going to go with Sam the Eagle.
I was just going to say Sam the Eagle.
Really? It's because of America. This is a story about America.
That's probably why, subconsciously.
Man delivers a formulaic and entirely lackluster film. The main cast is completely passive, making Wes Sturdy's antagonistic more understandable than any of the leads. And every action sequence is buried under some of the worst choreography and editing I've ever seen.
Oof. Half-star. That was a bad Sam the Eagle.
That was
I
pretty good.
apologize. I apologize.
No, you shouldn't. That was good. Wow, some choice words in that review. Bad
Worst
choreography. Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. I mean, we're all entitled. So
I mean, that was Sam the Eagle.
that was Sam the Eagle.
3-star review says, I honestly don't have much to say about this one. It's a good-looking film. It sounds great. Daniel Day-Lewis is good as expected, but quite frankly, I felt it was a little boring. DDL is a fantastic actor, but it seemed like he spent most of his film running through the woods. He's at his best when he's delivering great dialogue, and there was some of that here, but not enough for me to see this film as anything more than just above average overall.
Gold star. My 3 stars are back. My
Yeah.
club.
And like the lines that DDL does give, like when he looks at the colonel and he's like, one day you and I are going to have a serious disagreement. It's so good.
I guess, yeah.
Oh, man. 5-star review says, a meticulously crafted masterpiece of emotion, passion, and ferocious action. Incredibly moving and quite simply unforgettable. Killer soundtrack, too. I haven't seen it for a good many years, but after this rewatch, it may have just jumped ahead of Heat and become my favorite ever Michael Mann movie.
Wow.
Wowie, wow. So we rate each movie as a schmovie, a movie, or a film. We rate it 1 through 5 stars, and we give our final thoughts and recommendations. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, I'll go. What do you think I'm
Okay.
rating this?
So I guessed that you are rating this 3 stars.
I'm rating this a movie.
Okay.
And I am rating this an NHFT. Not here for this.
Whoa.
I honestly feel I don't have a rating for this. I really don't feel anything towards this movie. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I wasn't like, did I get a little, squirmish at times? Yes. Duncan surprised me the most.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't even feel the need to rate this. So this is an NHFT for me.
Wow. A first.
A first. Well, 2001 I couldn't rate, but that one was because it was like mind blowing.
Yeah, that was like different reasons.
This was a different reason because this is
like a moving on.
Correct. Not here for this.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
What about, do you recommend this to anybody?
Yeah, I would recommend this. This is where I guess if you're into war movies, but I don't, as we've been talking about, we still don't know if we consider this a war movie. It's more of a historical fiction epic.
Yeah, it's to me, it's a movie that has a few war scenes, but it's not a war movie.
It's not a war movie. And so, because Ant was asking, he's like, do you think I would like this? I like war movies. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I'm just not the right person to go to ask if you would like this movie because and you know what? I really, really, really wanted to go into this movie feeling surprised. And I went into this movie and I came out exactly how I thought I would feel.
Got it.
Which is kind of disappointing. But
got it.
Yeah. I wrote down, here, this is last week's rating, that you were going to rate this 4 stars.
4 stars.
I did because I thought of all like the research you did. And
so I am going to rate this a film.
Okay.
and I'm going to rate this 3 stars.
Okay. All right.
I watched it for the first time after avoiding it for years, was very taken with Magua and what we get of the Mohicans. I wasn't really in love with the rest of it. Doing my research, I listened to a few podcasts from native film podcasts because I wanted to get their perspective on it. I did a lot of research into the doctrine of discovery, going back to the 1100s and 1400s in the Catholic Church. I did a lot of
Wow.
time learning about the French Indian War and, the Indian Relocation Act under Andrew Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent a lot of time learning more about like the real life stuff surrounding this movie. And all of that did kind of like get me excited and interested. And then I went back into my second viewing like, oh, okay, I think I'm like more ready to watch it. And I still was like bored. Like I'm bored by this movie. I think it's okay for movies to be boring. I think it's good discipline to purposefully watch things that aren't always like incredibly titillating and interesting. There's more to be gained from art than just entertainment, which I have made that statement before and people hate that. They're like, no, a movie should entertain me. Not always. I don't think so. You're limiting what a movie can do if it just is supposed to entertain you. So when I say that this movie bored me, that's what I'm bringing into that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's well made. I just think it's not for me. Like it's just not for me.
You're not here for this.
But what I will say is I recommend this movie if you're interested in the history of Native Americans in American films.
Yeah.
Non-native filmmakers are still making these films and they're still telling the stories.
Yeah.
And so we're not quite to that point in the evolution yet with Last of the Mohicans, but it's an interesting point along the way. And so for that, I am actually glad that I watched it.
Good.
Yeah.
I think this is actually my first DDL movie.
Well, should this show continue, it will not be the last. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
Hey, if you want this show to continue, we'd love it if you give us a rating and a review. Wherever you're listening, it really helps, You can also send us an email, moviefriendspodcast@gmail.com. Let us know. Are we totally missing the mark with Last of the Mohicans? I feel like we are because every other person on this planet loves this movie.
I feel like we let our patrons down. Sorry, guys.
You can also support the show, patreon.com/moviefriendspodcast. $5 a month gets you access to all of our additional shows and our patron-only Discord. And you get to nominate and vote for movies just like this one, The Last of the Mohicans. I've gone all these years and all these movies and never watched it. And so you could introduce something like this to us.
Enrich our lives, friends.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
So next month is a very special month. We're going into May and we're doing something a little bit different. Each month we usually pick a theme and the movies fit within that theme. But after barraging Michelle with the Tampopos and the Brief Encounters and the whatevers for over a year, she is going to have complete control for an entire month. We are doing May Shell. So Michelle, take it away.
Yes. So next month, I'm in the driver's seat and we're going to be watching and reviewing and discussing films of my choice. Are you excited, Seth? Are you nervous?
No, I'm not nervous. I'm excited.
Good. I'm excited too.
And you've kind of picked like a spread over your life, right?
I have. We're going to start with a movie that is very dear to me, like that I watched with my sister as a kid. Then we're going to move into a movie that truly influenced me up until now. And then we're going to go into another one that really like made me love films. And then the last one, I'm going to provide our patrons a list and they can choose which one we do. So
Amazing.
that's real fun.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
It's going to be amazing. Michelle.
There you go, Seth. Thank you.
But I'm excited.
Yeah. And you kind of, you get to be me for the month.
Wow. To be Michelle for a month.
Yeah. So everybody wins.
You get to be me for a month?
Well, we're going to watch movies that I love
Right.
and I'm choosing. You get to just be along for the ride. And our listeners hopefully will have a good time.
Yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with this.
No. I think
This is like foolproof.
Yeah.
Foolproof.
I guarantee you by the end of this month, at least one person will say every month should be Michelle month.
I doubt that, but
That's the bar that I'm setting.
I hope everybody has fun. So yeah, I hope everyone participates. It's gonna be good. But that's not until May.
Right.
We still have one more Monday left of April.
That's right.
Seth, what are we doing?
So
what are we doing?
We are taking a slight break from movies, and we're going to do an Ask Me Anything episode. We've already put it out there. We've already gotten a lot of responses. But if you are a listener and you have questions about anything, and here's a hint, folks, it doesn't just have to be about movies.
Make it not film related. Because we got a lot of those.
Michelle would love to talk about something other than movies. So if you have any questions, like, maybe you've been listening for a while and you think to yourself, how many cats does she have? I'm not sure.
It's a great question.
Or if you're like,
does Seth like bouncy balls?
you know what's a weird thing? I'll answer that one right now. I don't. I actually don't like bouncy balls.
Aunt loves them.
Okay.
Like every time we'd go out, he'd get one in like the 25-cent machine. It's been a while. And then like our house was just how we had a bunch of bouncy balls. And I'm like, please stop.
Okay, this is the type of stuff, folks, that
Right?
you could be learning. Please. So send in your questions, moviefriendspodcast@gmail.com. Reach out to us on Instagram and Twitter, Movie Friends Podcast. And yeah, so it'll be fun. It might be a shorter episode, but we're taking a quick break from our month of adventure and before we head into Michelle. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you, patrons, for choosing this movie. I'm glad you guys love it.
I agree. And I'm glad that I finally saw it because I never would have if it wasn't for this.
There you go. I'm glad I am a part of this. I'm trying to fit in. I'm really...
Michelle's like,
I can't even come up.
Me too.
I don't know. Yeah, me too. Ditto.
Well, hey, thank you very much for listening. And until next week, when we're answering your questions, thanks for listening.
Woohoo!
Have a good one.
Movie Friends is produced by Seth Vargas and Michelle Rubenstein. Music by Anthony Pecora. If you like the show, please subscribe and give us a rating. It really helps us find new friends. Thanks.